was going to say, because when BBD came out, I know everybody was like, wait a minute, where's Ralphie?
Who said that when Bob first came out? It was just like, well, you know, I thought if anybody was going to go solo, it was going to be Ralph.
It's been about a week since the airing of the Bobby Brown documentary on A&E. If you haven't already, check out my reaction review where I briefly discuss my thoughts on the documentary, and I point out the fact that Ralph Tresvant was the only member of New Edition who wasn't there, among other things. In the video, I mentioned that these days Ralph has become the member that we see the least, and his story is also mentioned just as little also. Bobby Brown, BBD, and Johnny Gill's story have been told on multiple occasions, where their trials and tribulations as well as their artistry are highlighted. Whereas with Ralph, we've only gotten All Blacks a closer look in the New Edition story. In my opinion, they didn't quite do his story justice, and I believe it took a back seat to Bobby and Michael Bivins. If there was a member that deserved his own biopic entirely in addition to Bobby, it would be Ralph. When we talk about performers who can do it all, sing, dance, inspire, and entertain simultaneously, we have to talk about Ralph Tresvant. In the footsteps of artists like James Brown, Smokey Robinson, and Michael Jackson, Ralph Tresvant set a new standard of what it meant to be the lead singer. At New Edition's peak in popularity, it was only a matter of time that Ralph would eventually part ways with the group and achieve the same level of solo success as the aforementioned. Unfortunately, as history has shown, due to contractual and personal obligations, he wasn't able to break out. It was Bobby, not Ralph, who crossed over and became the face of a new era in music, from the late 80s into the early 90s. But what if I told you that it was the influence of Ralph that inspired the edgy swing of Don't Be Cruel, the shelved breakout solo album that would ultimately never reach the ears of fans? That album is Living in a Dream. In this video, I'll explain the history leading up to and surrounding the album, as well as details most likely known by any for lifers or rarely mentioned in recent years. While you're here, please hit the subscribe button, and without further ado, let's get into it. Now let's rewind back to 1985, after the release of their self-titled New Edition album. They were in full swing, touring, music videos, endorsement deals, and as we all know, their fair share of financial and internal issues. Amidst the issues they had was the fact that Ralph was getting the most attention out of all the group members, with Bobby not too far behind singing lead vocals on songs like Mr. Telephone Man and Hide and Seek, creating the division amongst the group. There was Ralph and Bobby, and then the members that would go on to become Belle Biv DeVoe. At this time, the bubblegum pop sound didn't reflect the space that the group members were actually in at the time. Unhappy with the group's image, music, and inability to express himself, Bobby, after missed television appearances and performances and one final outburst on stage, left the group. Throughout the years, this story has been told a few different ways, one most notable being that Bobby was unanimously voted out of the group, which may have been true. However, due to the already established division, Ralph was not interested in staying either, if Bobby was not going to be a part of the group. So much so that he had a meeting with Bobby assuring him that he would be willing to threaten to leave the group in order for him to stay.
Me and Bobby had became very, very close on the road. Being the only two cats that really held any real lead vocals in the group at that time. And me and him bonded a lot. There was a lot of, a lot of times when we sat in the hotel rooms and the rest of the guys would be heated because we would have moments on stage. I'd have a lot of moments where I paused during certain songs and then we'd get the chants from the crowd, Ralph, 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 blah, 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 and I could feel the tension. Every time that happened, I almost wanted to hush the crowd because I didn't want to feel what I was going to feel when we got off stage, kind of. Bobby had a few moments like that himself, so me and him became real close. Like, man, we ain't going to worry about that, man. We're doing what we're supposed to do. The people are liking it. They're buying it. They're coming buying the tickets to the shows. They're enjoying themselves. And that's all we have to worry about. We're doing jobs as guys up front, just holding down the records, or the leads on the records. So when he started going through the different things that started leading him toward leaving, one of them was he wasn't ready to go. Initially he wasn't ready to go. The group management, pressure from the company, and some of the things, he wasn't showing up for some of the gigs, solid gold. That became pressure from everybody to make a decision. So I never really made the decision, and to this day, Bobby tell you, I stepped to Bobby because I did have a lot of voice. Being so being so prevalent on all the records. And I came back to him and said, man, you know, we did have a conversation. I told him everybody's come to the agreement, man. It's gonna be better to move on, you know, without you, man. What do you want to do? But I tell you right now, if you really want to hold it down, man, I'll make a point. I'll make a point out of it. Let him know that, look, if he's not gonna be around, I don't want to be around either. And blah blah blah. He would have really got that then. And Bobby told me straight out. He said, no, I'm good, man. I'm gonna go for it, man. I'm gonna do my thing. I'm really ready to go try to do my own thing. At that point, the record company had already sanctioned and pulled him to the side. Said, if you want to pursue a solo career, you know, we got you. We was out in California, man. We sat down in the room. I asked him straight up and down. I said, B, look, I'm not comfortable with how it's gonna look to the public. I'm not comfortable on the fact that it's the future's not certain for you. You know, all of that stuff I wasn't comfortable with. We started it together. We'll go down together. What you want to do, man? If you really want me to make a point out of this, I'll make a point out of it. I'll put my voice on the table for it. And he told me straight out. He said, no, he said, yeah, I'm going for it, man. I'm good.
You never got kicked out the group, man. You left the group. I remember clearly the day you came to me and you said,
I'll tell you just what happened. Yes, I did come to Ralph, and I did tell him, you know, that I, you know, wanted to leave the group, but I was going to do Prerogative and all that shit anyway, so.
Bobby opted to leave the group and pursue a solo career rather than staying in a situation where he could not express himself artistically. In 1986, there would have been no new edition without Ralph Tresvant. I believe MC at the time would have acquiesced to the demands if push came to shove. So in essence, Bobby in fact left the group. Ralph and Bobby still maintained a close friendship. The group moved forward without him and into a period that they would refer to as a layoff, releasing their last album under contract to Jumping Street Productions, Under the Blue Moon. Although the group was still together, there was still feelings of resentment from the other members towards Ralph. This tension would ultimately come to a head after the American Music Awards in 1987, and what was supposed to be a moment of camaraderie and appreciation turned into a confessional of true feelings from the other members.
Well, I honestly thought there was a lot of standoffs. You know, there was a point where we had won our first music award. I was in the room, and this is what triggered me to go record an album, period. I was in my room, and I was talking with some of my buddies who was traveling around with me at the time. And I think at that point I probably was dilly-dallying with producers and doing different records and just writing and starting to write and produce, be it for myself or other people. So I had to come in, two of the guys that was with me. It was actually My Heart and Soul, which eventually Bobby used the concept of with Heart and Soul, but it was Mizzy Mo and Busy B. So at that time, I had them out there in California with me. We got off the stage. We came from the award show. And I was upstairs in my room, kicking it, you know, with them. And man, we got our first music award. Wow, this is crazy. And I got the call from the three, which are now later on went on to be dubbed as DeVoe, Ronnie, Ricky, and Mike. So, man, we want you to come downstairs, man. We want to holler at you for a minute, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking we get ready to do our own little celebration because we hadn't done that yet since the award show. So I told the fellas I'd be back. I went downstairs with them. And when I came downstairs, it was just this real negative energy, man. Everybody's real grim. And, you know, I'm talking about how much I love everybody. And, you know, this is a beautiful thing, man. It's amazing how we stuck together. We finally in the tribe. That's what we used to call it. Blah, 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 blah. And after all of this, man, I just love you guys. I'm glad we stuck out, man. I can't wait to see what's going to happen. And Mike finished that. And, you know, my little, you know, said what I had to say. And then I heard from Mike. Mike said, yeah, but we business partners now. And I paused for a minute, and I said, well, what is that supposed to mean, man? Did you hear anything I just said, man? What did that have to do with what we're talking about? It's some whole other stuff on me, and then I think Rick was like, yeah, you know, he's right, though. You know, I was like, and I'm trying to figure out where are you going with this? What is that supposed to mean? And I don't think I got it real clear from him. Next thing I know, I looked at Ron. I called his name. I said, Ron? And Ron didn't say anything. He just kind of put his head down, like, you know. And I said, all right, you know what, man? I've had my last moment where I'm going to feel like you guys are, like always teaming up on me, making me feel bad during great moments and different things where I felt like I'm doing You know, I'm doing pretty good as a lead vocalist and one of the members in the group that ain't had no flag. Been having everybody's back. Been pushing for everybody to do songs. Be equal in the group. You know, that's how we always saw it in our mind. We were all lead singers. And so it started changing when we started getting record companies and all that involved. But initially, we were all the same member. You know, all of us were lead singers. All of us were focal points. And I was fighting for all of that stuff. And I keep getting slapped. Felt like I kept getting slapped in the face. So this last time I'm going to get slapped in the face. That's when I left. I got on a plane, and I went back home to Boston. And I hadn't spoke to anybody for a long time. In the midst of that time, during that time, I recorded the Living in a Dream album.
Despite telling management that him singing all lead and background vocals on the records was not sustainable, and suggesting that they allow other members to sing songs, even writing what would go on to be one of the most popular phrases in pop culture, Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike, he was still labeled as a business partner rather than an ally or a friend. It was at that point Ralph decided to distance himself from the other members, which led to them having to perform without him for the first time at an awards show in Memphis.
It was the three of us, and it was Ralph. We was in Memphis at the Lou Rawls Gold Awards, and we were supposed to do a new edition performance with the four of us. And Ralph didn't get on the plane. So to us, we're sitting in the dressing room, and we're a little confused. And I asked my mom, because Ralph and I live 10 minutes away from each other. I asked my mom to go over Ralph's house to see if he would pick up the phone and tell him that we're in Memphis and is he gonna get on the plane and join us? We got this performance. My mom went over there and she's knocking on the door and the music's playing, and then she waited till the music stopped and she's still knocking on the door and she could hear people in there and she's ringing the buzzer. Nobody opened the door. And honestly, that day was probably the turning point in our relationship as friends outside of business. Because it was my mom, and it affected me because it affected her.
In the midst of that time was when he began working on what would become his first solo album. Having seen the moderate success and artistic freedom Bobby was given on his album King of Stage, it gave Ralph even more ambition to create a new sound and look for what he would eventually call Living in a Dream.
Bobby, that became Bobby's blueprint. He'll tell you that to this day. Right. Bobby lived and breathed and ate that album every day. The whole concept, the swing I was on, the two dancers, just the whole vibe. He actually named, from one of my hooks, he named a remix called Dance You Know. Yeah, that was one of the hooks in my joint. That's where Bobby took off. I gave him that whole campaign. The two dances, the swing, the style Bobby went and put beats in Teddy's ears, the hump and the hop he wanted to be on beat-wise. Right. And that's how that whole style started blowing up, man.
Yo, Riz, hold up, man. Save it for later. Save it for later. Hold up. Come on, man.
Really, at that point, I really wanted to do the Living in the Dream album.
Okay.
But after everybody dropped before me, Bob took pretty much the full campaign I was going to come with as far as an artist. That was my whole look. I wasn't the bad boy, which is what he flipped it into, but the music was bad. The music was that same bad boy swing that he was on at the time.
Right.
So, and the concept with the dancers and the whole shot, it hadn't been done yet. So it was all new. Everything I was going to do then had already been done through my boy.
Meanwhile, the other members were in talks with Johnny Gill to replace Ralph as the lead singer. Being that the forthcoming New Edition album would be the first entirely under MCA, that would present the first roadblock. Gerald Busby, who had his own plans at the time, was more interested in an album entirely produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who are responsible for the success of Janet Jackson and had recently scored a top 10 Billboard Hot 100 hit with the Force MD's record, Tender Love. The group's separation and lack of income from touring at the time presented the necessity for Ralph to either return to the group or move forward without him with Johnny Gill.
And was about to release it. Man, I started getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of calls from the record company, a lot of calls from members, different members in the group, and people who were around the group and other members at the time, telling me what they were going through, and they were losing homes and cars, and stuff was been getting real ugly for them. And I just felt like it wouldn't have been fair for me to go out there and do what I was going to do without going back to doing another project with you guys. That's the only reason. I started saying what was going on with everybody. I said, let's go. I think we need to record another album. And I had mad interest in the Living in a Dream album, including MCA, who I went to. Who at first didn't want to do it because he wanted another New Edition album. I told him, look, this is your first right of refusal. Now, if you're telling me that you don't want to do this, he's like, no, I'm not telling you that. I'm just saying, I'd really like to do another New Edition project, man. I'm bringing Flight Time in, and I'm going to get these guys that, okay, well, sounds good, man. But if you're telling me that, then that's when I started moving around and got interest from other folks. It was going to be a monster. It was those personal calls I started getting that made me say, you know what, put it on the back burner, I'll get back to it in a minute. And I never got back to it.
The artistic and creative predecessor that influenced and inspired the nationwide phenomenon of Don't Be Cruel, that took the music industry and world by storm, would never see the light of day. However, that's no slight to what would become the R&B masterpiece known as Heartbreak. What we didn't get in Living in a Dream, we got in Ralph-led songs like If It Isn't Love, Crucial, and You're Not My Kind of Girl, all of which display his vocal range and ability that we would have heard on his solo album. In 1990, the other members of New Edition would go on to release their own solo projects that strayed from their traditional clean-cut sound, each in the same up-tempo, edgy vein as Don't Be Cruel. In the end, Ralph would be the last member to release a solo album, paving the way with Sensitivity. Songs like Rated R and Stone Cold Gentleman are not talked about nearly as much as they should, because if you want to know what Living in a Dream sounded like, imagine those two tracks with more of that New Jack Swing sound. I hope you made it to the end of this video that I believe was very necessary. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you have not already, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.